Hello, this is Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. Natalie Blasingame is a candidate for the Cy-Fair Independent School District School Board for the school board president position. And I came to know of Natalie because of a hit piece done in a leftist magazine where they referred to her as things such as Christian nationalist, book burner, and vaccine denier. And when I read that, I said to myself, that's a person that I need to get to know because, of course, all of those terms are meaningless. Book burner means that you want to get the illicit materials out of our school libraries, something only a decent parent would want to have happen. Vaccine denier means that you want the parents to have the autonomy over the child in all medical decisions. Again, that is only a normal position. And Christian nationalist means that the leftists who wrote that magazine have a prejudice against Christians. And so what happened is we had Natalie on the show, and when we did, after that show aired, it was fireworks. And it was fireworks, in my opinion, because of two reasons. Number one, Natalie is one of the few school board members in the Cy-Fair Independent School District that did not vote to raise taxes. So she voted against it, and that makes her she's not agreeable, right? She's not someone who gets along with the other school board's members. Well, what does that really mean? That means that she's a good person if she agrees to raise taxes and put the screws in the back of the citizens one more time. If you do that, then you're agreeable and you can work with the other school board members. I personally will take someone who's divisive when it comes to those issues because I don't want taxes to be raised anymore. And the other thing that she wants to do is she wants to do a forensic audit on all contracts that the Cy-Fair ISD school board, schools are handing out to contractors. Again, only a normal position. If they're not doing anything wrong, there should be no issues with doing that, number one. But number two, every public corporation in America gets audited annually. There is absolutely nothing wrong with wanting to audit a school district. But when you take those positions, a political element will rise up against you and they will call you nasty names. And that essentially sums up her first visit on the Chris Heasley Show. And with that said, we have Natalie on the show again here today. Natalie, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. Really great to be back here.
It's good to see you.
And I will make one correction, not running for president, just running for a seat on the board, and then we'll make officer selections once our team forms up.
Thank you for that. I apologize.
I'm currently the vice president, though.
Very good, very good. So tell me about the state of your campaign.
Yeah, it's I've ran, just so you know, I've run for the school board. This will be my fifth time. So I ran against the machine that existed in 2015, 2017, and 2019, and then won in 2021, and I'm running again. And people have always asked, how's it going? You really don't know. You don't know until the day you know, and you watch those results roll in. And actually, both times, the last two times, it was the next day. It was so close in our races. But I actually feel the energy. We have an incredible team of volunteers. People are so excited about the campaign. And so we have teams that are doing all the things you need to do to speak to voters. It's all about turning the vote out for this. So there's groups working diligently. We have data, we're tracking, we have communications, and I'm not telling everything, our secret sauce, right? But really, I can feel the energy. I think people, I was surprised too with the last radio interview. I didn't know where we were going, and I'm going to blame you for that. As a great interviewer, you took me places I didn't expect to go that day. But you know what? Truth is truth, and truth resonates. And so I feel like people have to at least ask the question after that, do we really know? And why wouldn't we want to know? Especially with the $50 million deficit, that we're facing. And so we just have to know how to spend our money so we take care of kids in classrooms. So I will say I think the energy is good.
Do you find that you have the support of the people of the Cypress area with your positions when you take positions like, for example, not wanting to raise taxes, when you take positions like, for example, advocating for eradicating redundancies in the school processes in order to meet the budget, advocating for things such as a forensic audit on the schools? Are those ideas something that resonates with the people of Cypress, Texas?
Yes. I mean, how can it not? Budgets are budgets, right? We all go to the grocery store. We see the prices rising. People's tax bills are the most significant. The school tax is the most significant. And even today, we heard from Senator Betancourt and the governor about how many of the propositions for the Texas amendment, the Texas constitutional amendments are around property taxes and taxation. So people are very concerned about taxation. So to me, there's a huge resonance. I even heard from someone who supports the other slate in the grocery store parking lot this morning, pulled up next to me at HEB and said, yeah, I think we should have an audit. I work in corporations, like you said. He was mentioning even $100,000 was lost, he could be fired. Every dollar matters. So definitely I think that's resonating. And I think the message about, just in general, the message about the forensic audit is, I think it's at this point, no one's, there was the group that we had, there's a slate. I'm running against two things. One is a slate of people that are all Democratic voters, and they have their own set of, and then also I'm running against an incumbent, and so mine's a little different. But the slate group wanted to keep the school board born.
How are you running against two entities? What does that mean?
Yeah.
Break that down.
Okay, that's a good. You ready for a loaded question?
Please, yes.
Okay, it's kind of loaded. Okay, so the history of school board elections, it actually takes, you have to go way back. School boards are nonpartisan at this point. And so it kind of worked for a while, and it has actually kind of a sticky message. And even at the last forum we had, I think most of us there's a lot we can agree on, right? We all know kids need to be able to read. Kids need to have good discipline. Kids need to be able to have character. We know that mathematics is important. We know they need to be able to write. So there's going to be things we all agree on in education. It's not going to matter along a party line. But what happened is during COVID, people got a glimpse into school in their living rooms, right? They were starting to see what was happening, and people were shocked to see some of the culture that had slipped into our schools, some of the lewd books. They were surprised to see some of the ideas presented in the curriculum. They were surprised to see really just a very foreign place to what they thought school was, and so it just stirred the whole community up. So for that reason, it's basically now, it started becoming nonpartisan. It started becoming partisan in the nonpartisan, because those who were upset about the values they saw said, hey, we got to do something about it. So they operated, the structure that existed right now is in most elections, right, is party. You have Republicans and Democrats. And so people in the different parties said, hey, we're going to activate. And so starting in 2021, after COVID, it was the first time that the parties and the people that are political precinct chairs, and not because it's not party, it's local. These are our local schools. These are our local leaders. These are local people saying, hey, we care about our kids in our schools, and so we need to do something. And so it became a little bit, that's when the first time for me, and I ran in 2015, 17, and 2019 nonpartisan, and I worked against a machine that had kept the status quo. We had 17, 19, and 21-year incumbents. We had 2 board members who got their positions because they were part of a committee. They were chosen because they were people who would say yes, and then they passed a bond, and then they got the nod to the board. And so, anyway, the point is that now the elections have a little bit of a flavor. And so, unfortunately, what we tried to do is not have Republicans run against Republicans. So, and a very intricate process was created starting in 2021.
And this is just in Cypress, Texas?
Yeah, actually, it's local people doing local work for their local school board.
And is it just for the school board positions?
Yes, because guess what? Everything else has a primary, right? If you're every other election,
in lieu of a primary,
yes.
they did this.
So we create sort of like a little primary for ourselves, so that we could figure out who could go there. And so we created like a forum process. And I say we. I'm not we that created it. I'm not a precinct chair. I just have participated in it from the first time. And now we've run about 3 cycles of it out in Cypress. And actually, I was really excited Cindy was going to be able to be here. I wanted to really compliment and thank Cindy Siegel because Harris County is very important. And Harris County Republican Party over time has grown in their process as well. So local precinct chairs do some vetting and create a process. And then the Harris County Republican Party has now got a local governance committee. And they're the ones who go ahead and take that input from precinct chairs in the area. They do their own vetting, they do their own interviewing, and then they give an endorsement. And that endorsement matters because it's a very efficient way to run a campaign. You know what I mean? People know the party, they know the platform, they know the party principles, because those are refined, in the process through the political process and convention and that kind of stuff. And so then that helps people know you vetted these. Thank you, Harris County Republican Party. Thank you, Republican Party of Texas, because both of those have endorsed our slate. We appreciate that you're letting us know some people that line up with our principles. And so that process has now run 3 different times. And actually shocked the world. Cy-Fair was shocked the world. And I knew because I had run before, but we won all 3 seats once our people, our local grassroots folks got involved.
Who's we?
The local grassroots Republicans and conservatives.
Oh, you won the school board seats. I was still thinking about the committee.
I'm so sorry. Yes, no. So the committee vetted, and then our candidates, which was me and Scott, who is who you're asking me about, and Lucas. Lucas isn't running for re-election, but Scott and I are both up now.
So these are 3 people that were elected to the school board. Yourself, Lucas, and what's Lucas?
And Lucas Scanlon.
And Scott Henry.
And Scott Henry, exactly.
Okay, and now Lucas is stepping down.
Yes.
And Scott Henry is your opponent now in this election. Is that
yes.
correct?
Okay. So we go before the forum group, and this time it's grown every time. So I lost last cycle. I wasn't involved because it's a 4-year term. But we won 3 out of 4 spots again. And the only spot we didn't win last time was because we split the vote, because 2 Republicans stood up. So this group has tried to create a process where we will all agree not to run if we don't get the nod, because splitting of votes is not smart.
Right. So you're in lieu of having a primary, your precinct chairs select. They essentially endorse a candidate, and then those you can still run, but you won't have their endorsement. But generally speaking, all the Republicans say, okay, we'll go with whoever is endorsed, and we'll honor the system.
Yeah, actually, it is true, because just people have their rights, right? You don't have to. But actually, this time, guess what they did? They said, you know what? Let's really try not to have a split vote. And so we all made a pledge. We went through 3 different forums in front of the precinct chairs, and then they did straw poll. And this is the commitment we all made aloud. We signed a pledge saying that if we weren't selected, that we would not run. And then we all said this. It's a yes or no question, and we answered on the stage. If you do not receive the support of the CFISD Precinct Chair Caucus to run for a CFISD board position, in other words, if you are not one of the top 3 vote getters when this caucus has its final deliberations, do you intend to stay by your word and your signed declaration saying you will not run and risk splitting the vote in this election? I said yes. Scott said yes. Scott did not get the nod. And in fact, the voting was, they want to say, oh, the process is flawed. There weren't that many people. It wasn't a plurality. It wasn't this. But it was actually a very overwhelming number.
So just to repeat this story, essentially what happened is that you had Republicans running in the school board election, and there is no primary there. And what the Republicans were doing was splitting the votes and allowing Democrats to get elected. So what the precinct chairs in Cypress, Texas did to alleviate that situation was they created an endorsement system where they would endorse just a few number of Republican candidates so that they would not split the vote. The Republican candidates then endorsed that process by agreeing that they would honor it, and if they did not get the endorsement of the precinct chairs, they would not run. And you and Scott Henry, who are both running in this election, both agreed to that. You got the endorsement. He did not, but he is continuing to run in spite of that, and in spite of him stating that he would not run if he didn't get that endorsement, correct?
Yes. I mean, it's unfortunate, but you know what? We stand before that group. We stood before them 4 years ago. We said we were Christian conservatives. We said what we were going to do and not do. They asked us all the questions around policies, taxes, all the issues that they cared about. And so I wasn't afraid to sit in front of a jury of my peers or a jury of precinct chairs and say, hey, test me and see, did I do what I said I would do? And if not, send me packing. Hey, it's a volunteer job. But if I did it, then I did. I got a absolute, I got a non-contested, uncontested approval. Unfortunately, though, when you vote to raise taxes, when you work against the principle that's in the party's, about taxpayer-funded lobbying with TASB, when you vote against chaplains, which can bring support for students in schools, when you send a liberal colleague to go represent you on the Legislative Advisory Committee in TASB. These are the kind of things that were questionable. And so guess what? You were going to have to answer to a jury of your peers that you gave a promise to before. And so what's really interesting is I think Scott must have gotten nervous because in February I got a call from a colleague's, one of the school board colleagues that I was elected with's wife. And she said, hey, the party's about to meet and have their local governance committee. And so we want to write you letters of recommendation. You need to get your stuff in before them. And I said, well, wait a minute. I'm going to go through the forum process. And she's like, well, I mean, y'all have already been because you were already endorsed by the party before, the Harris County Republican Party, wouldn't you just be endorsed again? I said, no, that's like Austin, what's happening now. No, what happens is you go before your voters again, and they say yes or no to what you did. So to me, being endorsed before absolutely does not say that then I'm going to just assume that I get the endorsement again. If that was true, I would have no accountability in my office. I'd have no accountability.
Every election cycle, you should compete for the endorsement.
Yes, I believe in term limits as well. So compete for it maybe a second time, and then build up those underneath you to come on. And so the irony is, I got 3 incredible letters of reference for my term on the board. I had 3 people who wrote me letters saying about my service on the board that are now coming against me hard, and I probably should put them out as an endorsement, because the truth is, as soon as Scott did not he didn't want to go before the forum process. So then the next choice is to go ahead and criticize the process and say, even though that's the process that got you there, you criticize that process and say it's not really representative, and then you just run anyway. I'm not sure why you would for a volunteer job, frankly. Like, why? I wouldn't. But anyway, so they tried to get me to circumvent the process with the precinct chairs. I said no, but they wrote me letters of recommendation, and now they think I'm horrible. But the good news is, that I have the letters, and the work I've done doesn't change since February. It's just that, unfortunately, the way the race lined up is what happened.
You want to talk about those letters?
Well.
Okay, give me 1 second. I got to do my product endorsement if you have a second. Okay, great.
Sure.
So our featured product is the X39 patch, and this patch, what it does, it's incredible technology that RFK Jr. himself is using. And what this patch does is your body's emitting light. And what the patch does is it reflects the light back into your body. It's photolight therapy, and then it stimulates your stem cells. And the stem cells are the essence of youth, the essence of life. And it gives an overall healing of your body. And just to give you a couple of ideas, Maria in Fort Worth, she fell in the shower in 2008, hit her head hard, and she had headaches for 10 years. She put the patch on. In 3 days, the headaches went away. I have a friend who is a PTSD war veteran who needs heavy meds to sleep every night. He takes the patch. Within 2 weeks, he's sleeping soundly without any of those pharmaceutical medicines. David began having spots in his eyes. He takes the patch, uses the patch, the spots goes away. Not only does the spots go away, but he no longer needs glasses. He's a 60-plus-year-old man in Dallas. And as far as myself, I run a hard week. I'm working out all the time. I work hard in the office, and I sleep, and I have energy crashes during the day, and I need a lot of caffeine. So with this patch, I no longer need caffeine. I no longer have energy crashes. I wake up 5 a.m., no fog brain, at the crack of dawn. I'm working on legal documents and other very complex, sophisticated things with the X39 patch. One last thing. After the age of 40, for most men, there's a pressure on our bladder, which causes us to have to go to the bathroom a lot. And this largely alleviates it. At least it did for me. It's incredible. It's like freedom. I can't explain it. You're asleep at night. You have that urge. You wake up. You got to go to the bathroom, and then when you can't fall back asleep, and then your stress just hits you the next day. Not with a patch. I sleep incredible. I don't need caffeine. I'm awake and alert 5 a.m. and for the rest of the day, and I don't have that pressure on my bladder. It's incredible. So that's the X39 patch. And to learn more about this, text the word Patriot to 330-606-2304. We will give you a 30% discount. After that discount, the price is $100 a month for the patch, and I highly recommend it. It's the X39 patch, and text the word Patriot to the number on the screen. With that being said, we're going to get back to our interview here. And okay, let's talk about the
eyeglasses and the less coffee part that attracted me.
There you go.
I'll have to watch the show and get that number.
Yep.
That's great. So I would say there's a couple of things that stick out. To criticize the process is easy, right? When you didn't win the process. And so that's where I think people want to go. You kind of like, it's like a 6 of one, half a dozen the other argument. A lot of times the left, when we're doing the decisions with the books and looking at the curriculum and making parents' rights and making sure our bathrooms are safe and making sure that boys aren't competing with the girls and all these things that we've done on this board together. And I will say together because we've done some good work together. But all that work is, it's necessary work and it's important work. But if we didn't, the left always tells us it's not a very legitimate, like we didn't even get that many people vote for us, right? So there's always this criticism because we have these off-cycle elections where sometimes it's just the school district. We do at least do ours in November. It's actually very expensive too because the district has to pay for the election. There's a little bit of a share when there's like amendments on play. So this is, so a great solution would be a couple of things, or two possible solutions, right? So if it's not okay, like literally in this one, we only have about 85 field precinct chair positions in the Republican Party out there in Cypress in our whole district. 120 total precincts, but 85. And 55 out of 85 precinct chairs participated. That's way higher participation than any primary you've had, primary voters, right? We don't have them show up that much. So to me, this was an incredibly strong rate of participation. So you can suggest this is invalid. So then you know what? Maybe there's another solution. And actually, I spoke with Steve Toth today. He's an incredible legislator up in Austin. I really have followed his work, and I believe in him. Well, he filed this bill that, unfortunately, Democrats, because we gave Democrats power in Austin, unfortunately, they worked against it.
We allowed them to be committee chair heads.
And so that's how this thing died. And this is not the only bill. In fact, there were a couple of bills of a similar nature. But this was House Bill number 2670 that was filed by Toth. And guess what? It says, hey, an election of trustees for an independent school district shall be held on the same date as the general election for state and county officers. And it goes on to say 4-year terms. To me, another solution, if you don't like this process of...
right, and if I can say, the reason that Steve Toth introduced that bill is because we have our school board elections on a day that is not the general voting day. It's a special day. And typically people stay home during that day, except for the activists left. They know they can outnumber us on that one day, and they build their army, and they beat us at the school board elections regularly. So Steve Toth wanted to eradicate that, move the school board elections to when our full general elections were happening, and therefore we'd have a cleaner slate, a more fair playing ground. But we allowed Democrats to get on the committee chairs. Our Rhino Republicans in the State House did this, and now they can axe any initiative that we have, and they axed Steve Toth's bill.
They sure did. So to me, hey, we either do this process that we have right now, we keep it nonpartisan, and we let a supermajority of precinct chairs weigh in on their candidates, and then the Harris County Republican Party give their endorsement and run with it.
So Cypress has a very unique solution for this, where they built the precinct chairs endorse certain candidates so that we don't flood the field with too many Republicans that split the vote. And Natalie received that endorsement.
I sure did. And then we also had 3 of us. So Scott did not get the endorsement, but 2 other incredible candidates got it. We had George Edwards. George, with this forensic audit, George is going to be a superstar because he is a CPA. George worked in corporate American oil for years. George was on the board prior in the earlier, and so he gets the board business, and he says has an eye for business like that. Then you have another candidate who showed up. We didn't know her from beans, but she is amazing. She showed up. She has worked in our schools in our district and retired. And so she's worked as a bus driver. She worked as a teacher. She worked as an assistant principal, paraprofessional. So her knowledge about education, her knowledge about the district, her knowledge about the kids, her passion for the work that we need to do is so powerful that she showed up stronger in that forum process.
How many positions are available?
So we have 3 positions available.
And you have 4 people running for it in Republicans.
Well,
correct?
we had 3 endorsed by the Republican Party, and there's Harris County Republican Party, and we have 1 running out there that did not get the nod.
And that's Scott Henry.
Yes.
How many Democrats are running?
Well, there's a slate of 3 because they could get organized and not split their votes.
Yeah, right.
That's not. There's someone who I'm not sure if she's a party affiliation. That there were 2 people who signed up to run in those other races as well. The one young man. He was actually very precious. He came to the thing and found out that Riddell had been his teacher at Cy-Fair High School. It was so precious. He said she'd been his favorite teacher. But the left groups out there came hard and attacked him so viciously that the young man, who may have some special situation with himself, he basically said, I'm not running anymore because they bullied him to the point where he dropped out. And that's unfortunate because everyone should have a right to run. And then there's a wonderful woman who's also running in the Edwards slot. So I'm not sure. It's very difficult to lift up campaign. Look, I tried on my own for 2015, 17, and 19. But I think she's brought great ideas to the conversation. And so hopefully she's her ideas can continue to be offered into the solutions that come in the district. And then you have your slate that are They call themselves nonpartisan conveniently, but they definitely are Democrats. They're supported by the Democrat Party, secular Houston. Why don't you go on and look at all their endorsements, and you'll see that they're pretending not to be political. But why are you people out doing the No Kings protest with your shirts on and your signs out? It's definitely political, and it's definitely left-leaning, far left politics. And actually, you can go. They just did the iVoter guide. Gives everyone like a rating about conservative or liberal, and you can take a look there and see how they rated those candidates. They're definitely liberal-leaning and some radical even in their organizations, talking about the kinds of white guilt and indivisible
racial
Houston and racial division and cultural. Look, John Ogletree the community came unglued, and that's who I defeated 4 years ago, Dr. John Ogletree, 17-year incumbent, because he started putting out tweets that were and doing a racist resolution, an equity resolution in our district. And he put out things like, today's city council members are yesterday's Ku Klux Klan, or things people say when they have white guilt, or how people are, this country was founded on bad theology with white men holding Bibles. And unfortunately, the man I'm running against, Dr. Cleveland Lane, is he teaches Sunday school at his church. He's his proselyte. Go on their social media. You'll see John Ogletree 2.0 on there, because they're at his church, standing there with their election sign. They were very put out that we had an endorsement from a church, but they're in a church with Dr. Ogletree. So Cleveland Lane will bring more of that. And it's stated, you can listen to the forum. You can hear his statements online. You can see that he's all about bringing back those DEI and CRT and those kind of policies that didn't work. The community spoke very clearly during our election and said, no, that's not working. And you know why it's not working? Because we don't need that in our group of kids. Come to our graduations. It's the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. Everyone can achieve in Sci-Fair. Come watch the graduations online and see who the top 10% of the class is, the ones that get the extra cords for being in the summa cum laude, magna cum laude, and cum laude. Children, all children. We are a beautifully diverse district, and every children has an opportunity to achieve, and they do. You could come to our SAT, our honors programs for like national merit and distinguished scholars. You will see an incredibly diverse group of scholars that are learning. But we also do have an achievement gap that I have followed since 2015. And literally since 2015, black students versus white students in our district have had almost a 20-point achievement gap in most subjects. And so we do still have things that we need to deal with. But it's not about putting it about skin color. Kids, that's not it. It's about saying, I love you enough and I care about you enough to make sure I have high expectations for you, and then taking care of that by making sure you can read. Right now we have 13,000 kids who don't read on level in two different ways of being measured, either on the STAR test, not reaching approaches in 3rd through 10th grade, but now we've made a metric where we're tracking kids who can't read when they leave a grade level. So if you leave kindergarten not reading on level, we set a goal to track you, and now they report to the board. Are you moving? Are you getting towards on level, so that we can do the work that really matters? Because I can care about cultural anything, but if I didn't help you read, that's a school to prison pipeline, and it's a fact. It's a fact. Do you not know that the National Institutes of Health, they studied the inmates in Texas prisons. They did a little sampling, and about 80-something% were functionally illiterate, and 46 or something% were dyslexic. So there's a critical need to make sure we address all kids in their reading. So we have work to do, and that's how we take really good care of all groups of kids in our super diverse district, is we have high expectations for each one, not what Dr. Cleveland Lane is suggesting, which is, to label it and create victims and
Cultural
oppressors.
Marxism.
Absolutely. Read it. It's like classic.
Okay, so is the Sci-Fair Independent School District, is it the school board? Is it receptive to chaplains in the school district? How did it vote on that?
Well, that was actually very unfortunate. It was a very the issue came out of Austin. Actually, I advocated for them. I think it's such an important role, and so it came out, and every board had to take a vote on it by a certain date. And so, and then once you're on the board, you can't really talk to more than 3 people, because that would be, and we will never break, a walking quorum, or we won't break the rules. So there wasn't a lot of communication, but I'll have to say that was a very disappointing issue for me, I'm an officer, I'm the vice president, and so dealing with the other officers, which is the president, Scott, and our secretary. I really felt like we had an opportunity to do that well, and there were 2 things. employed chaplains or volunteer chaplains. And guess what? We didn't have the budget.
So did the board vote against it?
Not only did, yes, I voted for it. Christine
You
Kalmbach
voted
voted for it.
for chaplains in the schools.
But the others voted against it, not just paid chaplains, which would be an issue with the budget, but even volunteer chaplains. And Scott wasn't very honest about that even in the forum, because they used confiscation in order to write it in a certain way. But no, you cannot volunteer as a chaplain at the school. We can't, so there's no chaplains. And listen, so people, oh, that's so religious. No, it's not. Guess what? In the military, in hospitals, in the NFL, let's go down the organizations where chaplaincy is
Is this
allowed.
the reason that they why did they choose not to vote for it? What was the reason they gave?
We'll have to go back and watch the meeting. People cited, oh, well, there's not really a good way to vet them. Guess what? That's called policy. That's your job.
Yeah.
There's not a good way to know the training organizations. Guess
And
what?
what was
That's
the real
called,
reason that they didn't vote for it?
I think they got scared. The left came out hard. You had a woman standing in a Church of Satan T-shirt saying, "I'll bring my chaplains here." But it really was more like it was.
Well, I mean, okay, let's take that argument right there. I'd be like, okay, if I vote for this, is that woman, that lunatic, going to be able to get her advocates into the schools?
No, you just need to do a little bit of homework. Guess
Right.
what? That's not even a church. That's not a group that's allowed. And you can use
So
like
the
the
left-
Department of Justice has a way to vet and create a structure. Because guess what? The military has been using this very effectively. In fact, go look up the research now. You're going to see that they've actually, one of the answers to our soldiers and their needs was very recent studies was to add more chaplains and it raised the level of productivity, of satisfaction, happiness of soldiers. And even secular universities, you can look up some studies now. The secular studies are finding that chaplaincy works. And you know what? It can be neutral of faith. So let's say if you and I have the same faith, then the chaplain can operate in the same faith. It can be more faith-based. But if you're not the same faith, then we operate out of the principles of care, the principles of empathy, the principles of life, the principles of whatever it might be, because the chaplain knows they're trained to operate neutral of faith.
So the school board was intimidated by the left, most likely.
Well, when the left in the crowd cheers for your vote, you probably was your first clue. It's a very sad time. And let me tell you why I'm passionate. I have worked in schools for 32 years. I've been a teacher, system principal, district leader. So let me tell you what, kids these days are, and we will all, I don't think a single person will disagree, mental health is huge. Kids are sad. They're kind of hopeless because it's a really interesting time in history. And you have a lot of social media and stuff that puts pressures on kids. So we have a bunch of kids right now that are literally struggling with hope, happiness. There's a suicide, and unfortunately, those counts go up in our district. You know, we have kids who have a plan and a means. And so that's something you have to worry about. No one else's job at school is just to be present for kids. So as a principal, my job was to hire teachers, deal with the parents, make sure the school's safe. As a teacher, I have to teach the TEKS. Now, teachers are amazing. They build relationship. They teach the kids the content. They make it an enjoyable place to be. They're our frontline heroes. But they don't get a lot of time. When you've got 22 kids or 32 kids in secondary in front of you, you can't notice. You can even, maybe you see that Susie is sad, or you see that Juan is looking different. Things don't look quite right. Maybe you're wondering about is substance abuse happening, but you don't get the opportunity. It's 55 minutes and they're gone, 55 minutes and they're gone. And so the chaplaincy is a model where they can notice. You note and notice. You can be there for people. You see a difference. You are present, and you're just present. You're not, and the counselors. So that's what they tried to do too. That was the other argument. That was never true that you would get rid of a counselor. High schools could not exist without our counselors. You know why? Because they're doing all the paperwork, your graduation plan, making sure you have a class schedule, making sure you're signed up for the SAT, making sure. We have given so many administrative jobs to counselors that there's barely any time to get to actually counsel kids and offer them that advice and guidance and support and be present for them. I mean, my own kid, I'm going to tell you, you have to fill out a form, and then you maybe get called in 3 days to go to the counselor's office, or sometimes you go down there and they're in a meeting and it's like, okay, come back later. The counseling, because of the nature of the work we've given counselors, it's not a very accessible, they can't just be present for kids. So to me, in my heart of hearts, I think it's so caring and so precious for children. It has nothing to do with faith. It has to do with someone who's present. It's a ministry of care. And so I'm very sad that that's not something. But I will tell you, do we have the opportunity? That was one of the things we were asked in our forum. That's something our precinct chairs care about. Can we have chaplains in the schools? Is there something like that? And so I think that's something that's very fair. We need to win this election so we can offer that ministry of care for kids. And if I can, I'm going to share a story. Why I have a vision for what it can look like. I supervised a lot of high schools in HISD. I was a principal supervisor. And at Booker T. Washington, there was a gentleman who came every single day. He was a pastor in the area. He did teach driver's ed after school. But he just walked the halls, noticing, caring, being present. You could just feel his peaceful presence. And I also supervised Wheatley and Yates and all these other places. Guess which school was the calmest? Guess which school didn't have the fights? Guess which school was climbing up in the data points it needed to? The one where he was present, because kids knew that they could count on that. They knew there was someone who would notice, who would ask them the question and care for them. And so I've got a vision for it and that was just a volunteer. So yeah. And he wasn't even trained up yet. He was just he was a pastor, a local pastor. So it's so precious. It's so caring. And so you can call me a Christian nationalist and act like I have some agenda for shoving God down throats. You know what else, Chris? 32 years in schools. I have dealt with in Houston, in Gulfton, in A-Leaf, in HISD. How many cultures and faiths do you think I worked with? A ton. You don't get complaints because guess what? My faith also calls me just to love people. So I love the kids and the teachers and the people I work with. I take care. I love their families. I've just shown love because that's really what I'm called to do most. But it's basically, there's no like hard slamming agenda to shove faith down the throats of people. There's really just being God's hands and feet, being loving and making sure every kid has a bright future and has hope, because hope is powerful.
In our last interview, you talked about how certain architectural firms drive up the cost of schools regionally.
Oh, I did.
So when you say that, you mean that is not just in Cypress, but in the greater Houston area.
Yeah, I mean, the people have, the first person
Does it happen out here in Fort Bend?
Well, I'll give you a little challenge. How about this? So I don't have all the facts, but I know that there's I have family out here in Sugar Land, and I know Clemens High School is a premier school. In fact, my cousin used to work there, and my nephew graduated from there. I would challenge us to go look at that building program and find out what were the comparatives. So we have a building design and we have a suggestion. What were we compared to for pricing?
When they built Clemens High School.
And the design that's being done right now. This is a whole live active project right now in Fort Bend ISD.
Clemens High School.
It wasn't super apparent on the website. I went to look for it and to see. Somehow it didn't put the name of the company of the comparative projects. But why don't we do a little investigative reporting? Let's find out what in the closest thing to here, because isn't it just a little bit down the freeway? Yeah,
right.
We just go down to Sweetwater Boulevard. And so take a left on Sweetwater, go look at Clemens, go on the website for Fort Bend ISD, look up the project, look up the firms working on it, look up the comparative firms as far as the pricing. So I would say I would want to look for different companies, and I would want to look further away. I would want to look at different, maybe different states, or maybe the market's more statewide. But I would just wonder, who are we comparing to when we price that building? Who gives us our comparables, and see if there's anything to ask there. Is there any question to be answered there?
So what you're saying is that if you go look up Clemens High School, they have their cost to build, and then they have you comparables, and the comparables are all from a small number of the same architectural firms. That's essentially, I believe.
I don't know. Go find out. Let's just ask. I don't actually know. That's the project that I know is right now happening close by. That's us building a school and a whole high school. High schools are big. We have a high school right now for the $90-something million renovation going on. That's crazy, right? The price of construction, that how high it goes. But so I don't know right now. I'm just asking questions. My question is that how would we know? The question is, how will we know if that's the best pricing, or is that a fair price? Is that the best price? How does that compare?
What are the comparables?
Yeah. Because that's the taxpayers' dollars. So did we do enough? Did we ask enough questions? Did we get enough information? I would want to know what it costs to build. If we're building down 59, what about a business that has built a building on 59 recently? What were their costs per square feet? What was their construction? And people argue it's schools, it has to be safe and this and that. Yeah, companies do too. I mean, we watch towers fall and people change building code after that, right? And so I would just say maybe there's some differences in schools, but actually they're not as tall and big, but maybe there's certain safety features. Okay, all that is fair. But I just wonder, because the question was, I was posed that question in 2017 by a past board member of a large suburban school district, who I happened to see a couple days ago. I said, "You still live in my head." And he said, "It's true." He said, he wasn't like, he didn't change his story, put it that way. Yeah, it's just a question. The kind of construction we use, is this the most value? How wide are the hallways? How deep are the foundations? How is there brick halfway up the wall or all the way up the wall, and why? I think those are just all questions to be asked. What are the finish levels? We want kids in nice spaces. They need to be cool and comfortable and learn. But maybe we just need to make sure we're getting the best value in how we do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd love to do that investigation. I don't know. The truth is, I just know that I was thinking about it when I was here. How would I know? And I happen to, because my parents and my friends live in this area out here. I was thinking, what's under construction right now? And I was like, oh my goodness, Clemens High School. So I did a little query around on the website, but I don't have, it's not all right there. It's not transparent. So I just want to ask the question. I don't know.
You want to ask the question, what are the comparables?
Yeah, like how do we know that we're getting the
build?
best value for the taxpayers of Fort Bend in that project? What would be the way that we would know? What rubric was used to vet who would work on the project? Maybe they have a lot of people that are able to. Who's done work out? I think it's actually way more egalitarian in this area than it is in the area where I am, but it'd be just great to know. And then give Fort Bend the thumbs up. You're doing great.
So on your school board, do you have a difference of opinions with the other school board members on TASB and its rule and the education process in Cypress, Texas?
Yes. Okay, it's a lovely idea. In fact, I'm very sad I don't get to go to TASB. You know why? I have a ton of friends. I was an administrator. I'm a board member.
What is TASB?
Okay, Texas Association of School Boards is an organization. It's quasi-governmental in that it's really just you join. But we don't. It's not just like if I choose to belong to 24-Hour Fitness. I'm a personal citizen using my personal money. Guess what? When a school district joins something, it's taxpayer dollars. So we're using taxpayer dollars to join an organization for school board members to have an association.
It's a taxpayer-funded organization.
And that's part of the concern. It's a taxpayer-funded organization.
When did it start? How long has it been around?
Oh, that's really good. I've actually read the history of it a while back, but I can't commit to the date. But I do remember reading, they were very proud because they just had an anniversary. So it's possible it's 50 years, but don't count me to it.
And
maybe 30 years, maybe 20. I don't know.
How did it get started?
I actually think vendors, it's possible. But again, I don't know. I'm not a TASB aficionado of any kind. It's possible that architecture firms or other tax-delinquent, tax-collecting firms or I don't know, just name the product that would be something that sells a lot to schools. I do know because I did go to TASB a couple times, and I just saw a picture of myself the other day with an architect firm's name around my neck, and I just found a bag the other day that had an architect firm name on it. And it's illogical. It's shooting fish in a barrel, right? As a salesperson, I get to have all the board members from the state come to me, and I get to advertise to them. Beautiful. They also do some cool, they do some expos of some of the award-winning, construction while they're there. They have shows about different designs and lead designs and that kind of stuff at TASB.
But it's a leftist organization.
That's also an interesting comment because if every school board in Texas belongs to it, almost every school board, a few don't now, do you think Texas is more conservative or more liberal?
Conservative.
Yes. So you take conservative school boards and you take them into an organization where you basically regress to the mean, because I participated for a while in the Legislative Advisory Committee. The one time I thought, let me go see if this can work, this TASB thing. And I was part of the Legislative Advisory Committee, and it was like a general consensus of what our legislative agenda was going to be, and it regressed to the mean, and it was no longer conservative. But the membership probably is, because that year we took some priorities that filtered through the system, and with another woman who's on a school board a friend, we took items up to get them to be made more conservative on the floor of the delegation, and we got the votes. So there are conservatives out there, and they want the things to be conservative. But if we didn't step up to the mic that day, they would have just been left, and those were issues dealing with, gender and that kind of stuff. And so TASB just regresses to the mean. And then I also sat in a session in TASB myself. Okay, so I tried to go back, actually, with some colleagues on the Fort Bend board. We were dealing with someone in different, Lamar Consolidated and other conservative school board members. We decided to give a session at TASB to see could we go out and make any difference. And we talked about superintendent communication. And during that session, I went and I attended one. So we had legislators who had just been in session in Austin, passing legislation that took, how much work it is, how many actually make it to the floor and get voted on. And I watched them in that session, it was a law firm, unteach us how to do the law, how to get around. It was around books, I think. They taught us how to go around the law. It was a law firm teaching a session at TASB about how to go around the law that the conservative legislators in Texas had just passed. And this is not conjecture. I have the photos of the screen sitting in the room, and it says Austin, Texas on it. And so that's the kind of thing that's happening with TASB, and it's unfortunate. It does have I've had sessions given by groups that you wouldn't, think of a ACLU or whatever. Think about groups like that. Ultimately, they were allowed to present there. So now you have all these school board members like shooting ducks in any interpretation of legal things taken from a less conservative stance, right? Because you're trying to meet the needs of everyone, kind of like school board elections. So I'm going to say, let's start having them be partisan, and let's start having them be on the general election years. And 4-year terms. Let's just go ahead and call it what it is, and then that way we'll have a much more honest conversation about the values that we want in our schools and what we consider important, like reading, writing, and math, and safety, and name the issue that is critical in our schooling. So I think, so I actually testified before the State Board of Ed because they changed. So in order to really try to have TASB become more accountable, right, for some of that training and stuff, they started saying you had to be a registered provider. So now people have to be an actual registered provider, go through vetting through the TEA in order to be able to present a TASB. So that was a way to say, hey, we can't just have this free for all of all these organizations coming and talking about things we don't think are good. So that also happened in this last couple, like 2 years or so out of the State Board of Ed. But so there's a lot of questions over it. Do I wish it could be something that could be not neuter our values and not be so neutral that it becomes a big, I forgot a very important part. I was going to say it's an indoctrination station for school boards, okay? So you go there to be trained, like you said earlier about me, when someone asks questions, someone says, hey, are these contracts okay or not? I'm not saying they're not. I just need to know, are they or are they not? I don't vote with everyone on something, and that's not how you would be trained at TASB. In fact, this Cy-Fair school board, maybe around 2018 or 19, it got Board of the Year. Guess why? We're the team of 8. Team of 8 means the 7 board members and the superintendent. And you vote together, and you're all in unison.
Agreeable.
Then you get awarded. Yay, Board of the Year. And guess what? We're not a team of 8. We're 7 individual trustees with an employee called the superintendent. It doesn't mean that we don't respect and want the very best superintendent, support them, set their goals and everything. But it better not be that we're just a team of 8. It needs to be that we're supervising. And that's actually a disappointment I had also, which is part of why I decided to run in this lane. I loved the colleagues that would come with me. And we just gave a 4% raise to the top administration, and we had not even appraised our superintendent yet. And that was a failure on the part of the president. Not putting things on the agenda that were asked of board members, even though policy says one board member can ask for something on the agenda, president didn't put it there. So there's just a whole bunch of, and then just watch. Unfortunately, my colleague got soft, and he started becoming like, whatever the administration wants, I do what the administration said. That's not why we were elected. We represent the community. We bring those values to that employee. We set goals for that employee, and we ask that employee to do that work. We don't tell, it's not, the tail's wagging the dog. So TASB trains us how to be the tail that, the tail. TASB trains the administration to be the tail that wags us, the board, that's the dog. Is there anything that can be salvaged and saved in that? I actually have ideas, funny enough. But right now I took a stance, and we took a stance as conservatives. We said that. We said, no, we do not support taxpayer-funded lobbying and other aspects of TASB. So we left our director position vacant to say, hey, change your ways or we're not coming. We don't want to play. And my 4 colleagues on the board voted recently for 2 things. They went ahead and filled the, under pressure from, I'm not exactly sure how and who, but definitely someone said it was suggested they do that. They filled the director seat, so we're no longer protesting those things I talked about. They got someone conservative to come there. I've watched that before too. So one conservative there is going to change this whole seed tide. Great, that'd be amazing. I hope that can happen for our board. But second thing is that we voted for our most liberal school board member. I value her as a person. I think she's very smart and super hardworking trustee. So don't get me wrong, but the way she votes is not the way Christian conservatives vote. And we sent her to represent us on the Legislative Advisory Council. She nominated herself. Justin Ray seconded it, and all the 4, Julie and the 4 men raised their hand to say, yes, you go represent us and set legislative priority. I think that really upset conservative voters, and that's not going to stand well for you in the forum when you sit before Christian conservatives or conservative Republicans or grassroots Republicans, and you told them 4 years before what you were going to do, and then you didn't do it. So you can say the process wasn't fair, but how about accountability for your votes?
Well, we're at the end here, so
Okay.
just last thing to finish up. Please tell us what you would like to say here, and now that the race has started.
Yeah, definitely it's all about the votes. We did it because I did definitely choose a harder lane, but you know what? I'm here to get the work done. So I either want to be here with colleagues who can help me get the work done, or I got plenty of things I could be doing with my life. You know, I'm not here. There's nothing about this that is outside of a pure heart of wanting to serve our kids in our schools. Bringing my 32 years of very successful background in schools, I helped take low-performing schools and take them up. Even in HISD, those high schools I mentioned, super struggling areas of town, and every single metric in every single school I supervised went up. And I have the report card to show it. So I know how to do the school work, but we've got a lot of important work to do for our community. The community deserves us to be their representative, not that we do what the administration says. And so I just ask for everyone's vote because our models are positive. I know we can win this, but it's going to take voters getting out and voting. And I hope they can see through the noise. They don't even have to put a sign in their yard. They don't even have to tell someone they're not voting for them. They just need to go and vote for what they know is best for our school district. And you know what I also know? The future is so bright. We are the finest school, sorry, Fort Bend, but we are the finest school system around. We are. And I don't just say that. People think, because I have to find the things that we need to make better as well. But it's such an incredibly fine school system that if you get these, Raydell, Walker, George Edwards, myself, Christine Kalmbach's there, and then some other trustees that are, on the board. If you get us working for you according to what we have said, and we have set our platform very easy, all children reading for comprehension, fiscal responsibility and transparency, teachers having support, families being responsible for their kids, academic excellence for everyone and high expectations, where kids have a plan to go to college or career or military, a solid plan, not just you graduated, but we sent you up with a plan, then it'll be a very, the sky is the limit for Sci-Fair ISD, and I literally know that we can be, I feel like we've been great, but I want us to become a factory of hope for every single kid, because hope is powerful.
That's great.
Yeah.
It's a great way to end the show.
I know we can do it too. Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
Well,
I really enjoyed the hour with you, Natalie.
Thank you.
And it's going to be an interesting race started today, and so we're all going to be watching and see how this goes down in Cypress in Sci-Fair Independent School District.
Yes, go vote early. Voting sites are open 7 to 7. They're located throughout the district, and November 4th, Election Day. Thank you for your support. I ask for your support. We can be a city on a hill. We can be a really shining example of meeting the needs of all kids in our school system and all teachers.
Great. And with that being said, it's Chris Heasley with the Chris Heasley Radio Show. Have a great week. We'll see you back here on Saturday.